4. A full habits that make people disrespect you. Stoic philosophy. 4 toxic habits that can make people lose respect for you. These aren't just harmless quirks or minor personality flaws. They're deeply rooted behaviors that can destroy your relationships and reputation, often before you even realize what's happening. I know, because I've been there. You see, respect is like a bank account. Every day we're either making deposits or withdrawals through our actions. The problem is, most of us don't realize we're depleting our respect account until it's too late. Think about it. Have you ever noticed certain people slowly distancing themselves from you, or felt that subtle shift in how colleagues treat you in meetings? That's often the first sign that these habits are at work. I spent years unknowingly pushing people away with these exact behaviors. The worst part, I thought I was just being myself, but what I was really doing was slowly eroding the foundation of every relationship in my life. Here's what makes this so urgent. These habits don't just affect your personal life. They seep into your career, your friendships, and even your family relationships. They can hold you back from promotions, meaningful connections, and opportunities you'll never even know you missed. But here's the good news. Once you recognize these habits, you can change them. I'll share the exact strategies that help me transform my relationships using timeless Stoic wisdom, practical philosophy that's as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. By the end of this video, you'll understand not just what these habits are, but exactly how to break free from them and start rebuilding the respect you deserve. If you've ever felt people pulling away from you, or sensed that you're not getting the respect you want in life, type respect in the comments. Let me know you're ready to make this change together. Let's get into it. Habit 1. Gossiping. The silent trust destroyer. You know that feeling when you hear something juicy about someone else? That little rush of excitement, that urge to share it with just one person? We've all been there. But what seems like harmless conversation can actually be destroying your relationships in ways you might not realize. Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, to listen twice as much as we speak." Yet how often do we ignore this ancient wisdom in pursuit of that momentary thrill of sharing someone else's story? Let me tell you about a mistake that taught me this lesson the hard way. I was working at a prestigious consulting firm in Manhattan, where reputation was everything. There was this colleague, Sarah, who always kept to herself. One day I accidentally overheard her phone conversation about her struggles with anxiety and how it was affecting her work performance. Instead of keeping this information to myself, I shared it with a few trusted colleagues over lunch. "Just between us," I said, lowering my voice conspiratorially, "Sarah's really struggling. Apparently she's dealing with some serious anxiety issues." The response was immediate: raised eyebrows, knowing looks, subtle nods. In that moment I felt important, like I was part of an inner circle. But what happened next taught me a valuable lesson about respect and trust. The information spread like wildfire. Within days I noticed people treating Sarah differently, speaking more carefully around her, exchanging glances during meetings. The worst moment came when Sarah confronted me in the break room, tears in her eyes. "I trusted you," she said quietly. "I heard you talking about my personal struggles. Do you have any idea how that feels?" Seneca writes, "The most contemptible kind of folly is that which rejoices in its own shame." In that moment, I understood exactly what he meant. My momentary pleasure in sharing gossip had caused real pain to someone else. But here's what makes gossip particularly toxic. It's not just about the person you're talking about. Every time you engage in gossip, you're sending a clear message to everyone around you. This is how I treat confidential information. This is how I handle trust. Think about it. When you hear someone gossiping about others, don't you automatically wonder what they say about you when you're not around? That's how respect erodes, one conversation at a time. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be one." This applies perfectly to gossip. Instead of talking about others, focus on being worthy of the trust people place in you. Here's how to break free from this habit. First, practice the 24-hour rule. Before sharing any information about someone else, ask yourself, would I say this if they were standing right here? If not, keep it to yourself. Second, redirect gossip when others initiate it. When someone starts sharing sensitive information, try saying, I'm not comfortable discussing this without them present. It might feel awkward at first, but people will respect you more for it. Third, focus on building people up instead of tearing them down. When you feel the urge to share something negative, challenge yourself to share something positive instead. Remember, every time you choose not to engage in gossip, you're making a deposit in your respect account. Every time you protect someone else's privacy, you're building trust that will serve you well in both your personal and professional life. The next time you're tempted to share something about someone else, pause and ask yourself, is this building respect or destroying it? Am I being trustworthy or entertaining? Because here's the truth about gossip. While it might make you interesting for a moment, being trustworthy makes you valuable for a lifetime. Have you noticed how being reliable seems rare these days? Almost like it's become optional? Well, our next habit is something that's become so common we barely notice it anymore, until it costs us everything we've worked for. Habit 2. Unreliability. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had someone break a promise to you and then act like it wasn't a big deal? That casual, sorry something came up text that arrives hours after they were supposed to meet you? Here's the truth. Every time you fail to follow through, you're not just breaking a commitment, you're breaking trust. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." And at its core, being reliable is about being good to your word. I learned this lesson the hard way. I used to think being spontaneous and flexible meant I didn't have to be rigid about commitments. But what I was really doing was showing people that my word meant nothing. Let me share a story that changed everything for me. A few years ago, my closest friend Sarah was planning her 30th birthday party. This wasn't just any celebration. She'd been planning it for months, coordinating with people flying in from different states. I promised I'd not only be there but would help with the preparations. The day of the party, I got caught up in something that seemed important at the time. A last-minute invitation to a networking event that I thought could help my career. Instead of honoring my commitment to Sarah, I sent her a quick text. Sorry, something came up. Rain check? That rain check cost me one of my most valuable friendships. Seneca teaches us, the person who has anticipated every difficulty will meet none that they have not prepared for. This isn't just about keeping appointments, it's about the fundamental integrity of your character. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you said, let's definitely catch up soon, with no real intention of following through? How many, I'll get it to you by tomorrow promises have stretched into weeks? Here's what makes unreliability so toxic. It's not just about the individual moments of letting people down, it's about the pattern you establish. Each broken promise, each missed deadline, each casual, sorry I forgot, builds up like compound interest, but in reverse. You're not just losing respect. You're actively training people to expect disappointment from you. I see this play out dramatically in professional settings too. In my early career, I had a habit of saying yes to everything, thinking it would make me look good. Sure, I can handle that project. Of course, I can meet that deadline. But my overcommitment led to consistent under-delivery. During a particularly brutal performance review, my manager said something I'll never forget. Your work is excellent when you actually deliver it, but we can't build a strategy around excellence we can't count on. That's when Epictetus's wisdom really hit home. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Reliability isn't about explaining why you couldn't do something. It's about doing what you said you would do. So how do we fix this? Here are the practical steps that transformed my own reliability. 1. The 24-hour rule. Before saying yes to anything, give yourself 24 hours to consider if you can truly commit to it. 2. The calendar test. If it's not in your calendar with a specific time block, it's not real. Schedule everything, even small commitments. 3. The brutal honesty protocol. Start practicing saying no, or I need to check my commitments first, instead of an immediate yes. 4. The buffer principle. Whatever time you think something will take, add 50% to that estimate. We're all optimistic about time. The most powerful shift came when I started treating every commitment, no matter how small, as a promise to myself first. Because here's what I discovered. Reliability isn't just about other people's respect. It's about self-respect. Remember, your reliability score isn't measured by your intentions, but by your actions. Every time you follow through, you're not just keeping a promise, you're building your character. And if you're thinking this is just about being punctual or organized, consider this deeper truth from Marcus Aurelius. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. But even if you're the most reliable person in the world, our next habit can still destroy respect in seconds. It's something we all do, often without realizing it, and it's particularly damaging in professional settings. Habit 3. Interrupting others. Have you ever wondered why some of the most intelligent people you know are often the least respected? It's not their knowledge that's the problem. It's their inability to let others finish a thought. Think about the last time someone cut you off mid-sentence. How did it make you feel? As Epictetus wisely observed, nature has given us one tongue but two ears, that we may hear from others twice as much as we speak. This ancient wisdom cuts to the heart of one of our most destructive habits, interrupting others. Let me share a moment that changed my perspective entirely. I was sitting in a board meeting, eagerly waiting to share my insights about a new project. Each time someone spoke, I'd jump in with what I thought was brilliant input. I was proud of my quick thinking and engagement. Until our CEO, Sarah, stopped the meeting entirely. "When you interrupt," she said, looking directly at me, "you're not just cutting off words, you're cutting off thought itself." The room fell silent. In that moment, I realized how many ideas, insights, and contributions I'd killed before they could even take form. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, be silent for the most part, or if you speak, say only what is necessary and in few words. The wisdom here isn't just about talking less, it's about understanding that every interruption is an act of arrogance, a statement that your thoughts are more valuable than others. But here's what makes this habit particularly insidious. We often interrupt with good intentions. We think we're helping, adding value, showing enthusiasm. I certainly did. Like during a team brainstorming session, when a junior colleague was hesitantly sharing an idea, I jumped in to help develop her thought, only to watch her shrink back, never to contribute again that day. Seneca puts it perfectly. The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. When we interrupt, we're not just being rude, we're living in expectancy of our next comment, rather than truly experiencing the present moment of listening. So how do we break this habit? It starts with understanding the three types of interrupting. 1. The enthusiastic interruption. When you're so excited about an idea that you can't wait to share it. 2. The helpful interruption. When you think you're assisting by finishing someone's thought. 3. The impatient interruption. When you believe you already know what they're going to say. The solution isn't just about keeping quiet. It's about developing what the Stoics called inner stillness. Here's how. First, practice the 3-second rule. When someone stops speaking, count to 3 in your head before responding. This tiny pause ensures they've actually finished their thought. Second, adopt what I call the empty cup mindset. Imagine your mind as an empty cup when others speak. You can't fill it with new ideas if it's already full of your own thoughts waiting to spill out. Here's a personal example that illustrated this perfectly. During a crucial client meeting, I forced myself to write down my thoughts instead of immediately voicing them. By the meeting's end, half of my brilliant interruptions had become irrelevant. The conversation had naturally addressed them. The other half had evolved into more thoughtful contributions. The results? Not only did the client feel truly heard, but our team uncovered solutions we might have missed in a more fragmented discussion. Remember, every time you resist the urge to interrupt, you're not just showing respect, you're creating space for deeper understanding. As Epictetus taught, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Think about this. How often do you remember being grateful that someone interrupted you? Now, compare that to the times you wished you'd had space to finish your thought. The next time you feel that urge to interrupt, ask yourself, what's more important? Adding my voice to this moment, or creating space for someone else's wisdom to emerge? But while interrupting pushes people away immediately, our next habit creates a slow poison in relationships that can be even more destructive. Habit 4. Chronic complaining. Complaining feels like breathing these days. It's comfortable, familiar, and seems harmless. But here's the brutal truth. It's silently destroying your relationships and eroding the respect people have for you. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This wisdom hits particularly close to home for me, because I used to be what you might call a professional complainer. Let me take you back to a turning point in my career. I was working at a prestigious marketing firm in Manhattan, the kind of job many would dream of having, but all I could see were the problems. The deadlines were too tight, the clients were too demanding, the management was disorganized. Sound familiar? Every morning I'd walk into the office with a fresh list of grievances. My colleagues initially seemed sympathetic, nodding along as I vented about everything from the broken coffee machine to the unreasonable client expectations. I thought I was just keeping it real, being authentic about my frustrations. But then something shifted. I started noticing how people's body language changed when I approached. Conversations would suddenly wrap up. Lunch invitations became rare. The final wake-up call came during a project meeting when a senior colleague, someone I deeply respected, pulled me aside afterward. "Your work is excellent," she said, "but your constant negativity is affecting the entire team. People are starting to avoid working with you." That hit me like a bucket of cold water. Marcus Aurelius writes, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." I had been poisoning not just my own mindset, but the entire atmosphere around me. Think about it. Have you ever been around someone who constantly complains? How does it make you feel? That heaviness, that drain on your energy. That's what I was inflicting on others daily. Here's what I learned about chronic complaining. First, it's contagious. When you constantly complain, you're not just expressing negativity, you're breeding it. You become what Seneca called a poison in the well that others drink from. Second, it reveals a deeper issue, learned helplessness. Every time you complain without taking action, you're training your brain to feel powerless. You're telling yourself and others that you're a victim of circumstances rather than a shaper of your reality. But here's where the Stoics offer us a powerful solution. Seneca advises, while we wait for life to happen to us, life passes. The antidote to complaining isn't positive thinking, it's positive action. I started a personal experiment. Every time I felt the urge to complain, I'd ask myself 3 questions. 1. Is this within my control? 2. If yes, what's one small action I can take right now to improve it? 3. If no, what's the opportunity for growth here? This simple framework transformed my approach. That broken coffee machine? Instead of complaining, I researched alternatives and proposed a cost-effective solution to management. Those tight deadlines? I developed a new project management system that actually got adopted company-wide. The change wasn't immediate, but it was profound. Within months, I noticed people seeking out my input again. My reputation shifted from the complainer to the problem solver. Here's the practical toolkit I developed. The 24-hour rule. Wait 24 hours before voicing any complaint. most will lose their urgency. The action requirement. Every complaint must be paired with a proposed solution. The growth question. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this situation? But remember, this isn't about suppressing genuine concerns. As Epictetus teaches, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. There's a fine line between addressing legitimate issues and falling into the complaint trap. The key is to focus on what you can influence and accept what you cannot change with grace. Think about your own life right now. How many of your daily conversations revolve around complaints? How might your relationships change if you transformed that energy into constructive action? The respect you desire comes not from pointing out what's wrong, but from being the person who helps make things right. Remember, complaining is comfortable, but growth is invaluable. Your words shape your reality and influence how others perceive you. Choose them wisely. Are you ready to break free from the complaint cycle? Share A in the comments if you're committed to turning complaints into actions. Let's grow together. Conclusion. As we reach the end of our journey through these 4 respect-eroding habits, I'm reminded of a powerful quote from Marcus Aurelius. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Today, we've explored how our daily habits color not just our thoughts, but the very essence of how others perceive and respect us. These aren't just theoretical concepts. They're the building blocks of every meaningful relationship in your life. Whether it's gossip that destroys trust, unreliability that breaks bonds, interrupting that dismisses others' value, or complaining that poisons the well of positivity, each habit represents a choice we make every single day. Think of respect like a garden. It requires constant attention, careful cultivation, and most importantly, the removal of weeds that threaten to overtake it. The habits we've discussed today are those weeds, but now you have the tools to identify them and, more importantly, the Stoic wisdom to replace them with behaviors that nurture respect and dignity. Remember, change doesn't happen overnight. As Epictetus wisely noted, no great thing is created suddenly. Every time you catch yourself before sharing gossip, every commitment you honor, every moment you truly listen, and every complaint you transform into action. These are seeds of respect you're planting for your future. If this discussion has resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on which of these habits might be holding you back. Are you ready to make the change? Let me know in the comments by sharing growing respect along with the habit you're committed to changing first. If you found value in these insights, please support our community by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. We're on a journey of growth together, and I'd love to have you along for future discussions about applying ancient wisdom to modern challenges. For those wondering about next week, we'll be diving deep into Stoic principles for building unshakable confidence. You won't want to miss it. Until then, remember, respect isn't about who you want to be tomorrow. It's about the choices you make today. Stay strong, stay stoic, and keep growing.